Welcome back to Tilting a Windmill, and today I'm going to talk about a subject that many of you may have had on your mind but just didn't know what the answers were to or hadn't been too busy to figure out. But you find out later in the newspaper that the property across from you has bulldozers pushing dirt around, and so you walk across the street and ask the contractor or one of the workers what's going on, and you find out that there's an apartment complex going on, a gas station, a convenience store, or what have you, and you're living out in a residential neighborhood. And you go, well, how can this be? Well, the how can this be is what I want to talk about today. People all the time in the building industry, in the developing industry, in the investment industry, buy property, sometimes on speculation, sometimes on long-term planning, but they're all interested in making a profit, and going into a residential area and purchasing property at a less expensive price than going into, say, a commercial zone will make them even more profit. And how they go about this is they file paperwork with the county saying that they want to take a parcel of land that they bought that's zoned for residential, which is where your house is probably at right now, zoned for residential, and they want to change the zoning code on it to where they can either do light manufacturing or what have you. And they go before the Planning Commission for Nye County, which is where I'm talking about here in Nevada, and they fill out an application, which is what I have right here. This is not actually the application, this is actually an agenda item. Now, every month in our county, in every county, they have planning commissions that meet, and they review the applications that have come in to them, and they either say yay or nay. But while this is going on, there's actually a public meeting taking place, and the public, you and I, get to come down to these meetings, sit in, and if we have an objection or a comment we'd like to make about what's going on, this is where you get to do it. When the bulldozers are pushing the dirt around the property is not the time you should have raised any opinions or objections about what's happening in your neighborhood. It's during these type of meetings. Now, how do you find out about these meetings? Well, you know, this is not rocket science I'm talking about here. At the Nye County website, you can go on it, and all of the different commissions have their meetings listed on there. This one right here, I'm going to hold it up, I hope the camera picks it up, is the Nye County, Nevada Pahrump Regional Planning Commission regular meeting, and this was held last night, December the 10th, 2014. Now, I stay on top of this because I'm pretty much a political activist here in Nye County and Pahrump, and I want to know what's going on because I don't want a gas station or a slaughterhouse or what have you going across the street from me. My wife and I bought this property. We plan to retire here. We are semi-retired right now, and I want the peace and tranquility that came to moving into a rural investment. Now let me take this example right here. This was from last night's meeting, and I'll show you how this goes about happening. And by the way, in the audience, there was probably 10 people that lived that they believed this was going to affect their quality of life. These people in the audience bought houses between $200,000 and $750,000, and they're on a little higher territory than probably a lot of us are, where they can look down. They have beautiful mountains views off the distance and the valley before them. And here's what had taken place. I'm going to give you in a nutshell what had happened. A piece of property that equaled 177 acres, I believe it was going to, through bankruptcy process, and a land speculator, that's what I want to call the gentleman, purchased this property. I don't know what he paid for, but there were two parcels, and I believe they were exactly about the same size, so they're about 85, 88 acres apiece in size. Picked them up in a bankruptcy sale, and he decided to make some money off this property. Now, this property that he had picked up, this 177 acres of property, had been already approved by the same Nye County Planning Commission for about 6,000 plus single-family residences. And this is not uncommon here in the valley out here. There's a lot of already approved projects that simply never got off the ground. The economy turned sour. The people that had put the projects together couldn't get their finance together, couldn't get the houses built, and some of them end up in bankruptcy. And so this was already platted to go into housing. And this gentleman that picked this up decided, no, he says, I want to have the option of doing something else with the property. Now, so what he did is filed this paperwork right here. And what they do in these paperworks, they list the filings, the location of the property, they list the the legal description of the property. They've got on here who the property owners are, who the applicants for this particular change are, and who the agents are, and who to contact. This is all public record right here. These are all filed. And what you have inside of here, and this one here, this is for a different item, but I'm going to go ahead and use this as an example because it's the same paperwork, just different map. You'll have all, everything that they're wanting to do, any analysis that they've done to try to sell this planning committee on their project, any conclusions that came about. And then you'll see right here, they even have property, maps, showing where the property's at. And, yeah, I mean, they get pretty detailed. There's nobody sitting in their neighborhood right now that can go see the bulldozer going across the street and say that, hey, this wasn't, they weren't notified about this. In fact, for the vacant property and property in general around there, you're generally given a notice sent out that something's happening in your neighborhood. But people see these things, oh, it says Nye County, I don't know, I already paid my property taxes, and they toss it in the garbage, or it just never gets before them. Well, you have to stay on top of this, folks, because nobody is going to hold your hands to go through this. These people that are doing the developing, this is business for them, and the county has people that we pay in the planning department. We have the water district. You may have heard the term water district. And in cases where water is involved, of course the water district is going to be involved too. And the people that are doing the planning, the project managers, they go before these committees and they either get a yay or a nay, or they change what they're applying for to try to get a yay. And so they may go before the one particular water board meeting. Again, a water board meeting is going to have an agenda. Now you go on the Nye County website and you're going to see the agenda for the meetings. You're going to see the date of the meeting, the time, and there's going to be a whole list of what's going to be covered during that meeting. And I do this because I'm interested in it, and I look through and, oh, this is interesting. Well, in this particular case, this person had bought the property in bankruptcy sale, but he also already had or has located a company that wanted to put a solar energy farm of panels on about half of this property, about 80 some acres. Well, the people that got wind of this in this particular neighborhood with a view thought, hey, we don't want to look out our window, and this was about 1,200 feet away from their property where they're at, that this particular project was to go. Because let me explain to you what can happen. Let's say you paid $500,000 for your home, but now your view has been, it's been degraded because looking out through the property there, let's say off through your front porch, is now all of these solar panels or array of mirrors or what have you that are down there across, a little way across from you, 1,200 feet, that's probably about 3-4 blocks. And instead of seeing lush fields down there or even more residential houses, you're now looking at this massive project. And plus, people driving down the highway, they may be able to see this massive project over there and say, I really don't want to live in an area that has all these solar panels out there. So what does that do to your property value? Well, you paid $500,000 for it, and in the case, I believe, of this particular property, there were people from the audience that got up that have done a little research and said, this is going to affect our property values, say 20%. Well, take 20% of 500,000 you have. Now your property just took a negative hit of $100,000 because this commercial project was going down in front of you. Other people didn't bother to come to meeting. My guess is a lot of them just threw these notices and letters that they get about this stuff in the garbage can. Well, at these meetings, the press is there. They'll generally, if it's something that's exciting going on, they'll write an article about it and take pictures of the people sitting up at the meeting. But like I said, when you go to these meetings, you don't even have to live in that neighborhood. I didn't live in that neighborhood. I lived, probably 3 or 4 miles away from this project. But I got up and spoke at one of these particular issues because here was what my objection was. Even though I had nothing to do with this neighborhood, I thought if the planning department was going to go ahead and agree with the homeowners and say that no, we're not going to allow this a particular array of panels to go down. No, we don't like your zoning requirements. We just don't like anything about what you're proposing here. Then I thought, well, out where I live, then fine. I'm in a residential area too, and I want to be treated as equal as these people that have the $750,000 houses. So if it's an objection about a commercial project coming into a residential area, then I have as much, you have as much right as anybody else to complain about it. Because let me, backing up a little bit here, our county, our town here, there's a provision, not a provision, there's documents that are called master plans. And in fact, they're thick. They can be this thick inside. And they take years to put together, but what basically you've done, they plan out the entire community of how it should be based upon needs and aesthetics and the type of community is. And so they have commercial property areas, they have residential areas, they have light industrial areas, they have manufacturing areas. This is all on master plans. And so the reason that your house is sitting where it's at is because on a master plan, that was decided that was going to be a residential area. But like I say, these people can come in and ask for a variance in the residential nature of your neighborhood. And if you or nobody else gets up and complains about it, guess what? You could have it right across the street from you, devaluing your property. This could be as a gas station. It could be a convenience store that's put in your neighborhood. But how many people really want to have the traffic pulling up in front of a convenience store that's going 24 hours a day across the street from their house or just down the street? And the same thing goes through the minds of prospective buyers if you happen to want to sell your property. The people come up, look at your house, they really like it, they like the scenery, they like everything, and then they go, oh, well, there's a friggin' gas station right, two properties down over there. I just don't really want to have the traffic and the noise and possible crime, whatever else could come about it. I want to buy a piece of property that's nice and quiet. I can hear the birds chirp in the morning, not cars pulling up to a convenience store. So anyway, this is where this happens. Like I say, this is at a planning commission. But the same thing holds true, folks, for the water board meetings. Again, there's agendas that are drawn up. These are held monthly, and there's a time and a date. Now, this particular meeting here that I'm talking about, they happen down at where the county meetings are held, or the county commission meetings are held, where the town board, well, now the defunct town board no longer exists, but that's where those meetings were held. And there's lots of seating in there. It's comfortable seats, and you'll have a podium up ahead that's got all the commissioners, or in this case, they even have the lists of them. There's people that, your neighbors could be on one of, you may have a neighbor that sits on one of these boards. But I believe last night there must have been, I'm thinking in my mind, about 7 board members, and they have a chairman and they have an assistant chairman, and they vote on these matters. Now, even if they allow a development to go through, This is where objections can be noted. Now, for instance, say that you weren't really opposed to that daycare center or whatever that was being proposed to be put next to you, but you really want a wall up there, you know, a cement block wall, so you're not seeing the cars pull up, you're not seeing the traffic and everything. Well, this is where that can be put in there. The commission could say, okay, we're going to go ahead and approve your particular request here, but we're going to have a list of items that you're going to have to comply with. For instance, you're going to have to put a buffer fence up to knock the noise out. You're not going to be allowed to run your business after, say, 7 o'clock at night, because again, noise could affect the neighborhood. We're not going to allow you to have long-term storage of some particular material or another on that property. These items are all covered. And what happens to, okay, now this planning commission does not have the final say. What happens to this is going to have to go before the Nye County Board of Commissioners. Again, the Nye County Board of Commissioners, they really control the county as far as final say on, at least county government-wise, on any of these type of proposed developments or changes. And what happens is that if this board right here happens to approve your plan, now it's going to be put on an agenda for the commissioners, and the commissioners and it's going to be all listed out there. There's going to be quite a bit of detail for them, because they're not going to, well, they have one commissioner that's assigned to each of these type of committees. And at this particular meeting, sitting in last night was Butch Boraski. Now, he was sitting in for another commissioner that just happened to miss this meeting. But the commission is generally represented at these meetings, so they hear and see what's going on and can take back to the other commissioners, some information about what was going on, what the community was saying about these events. And so you're sort of protected that way. If the commissioner doesn't want the program to go forward, this particular plot to go forward, this particular zoning to go forward, then he's going to, or she is going to bring it up with the commissioner, because that's the next step. Now, once it gets in before that Board of County Commissioners, if you have not done anything about this, have not gotten up at that commissioners meeting, because once again, at that meeting, the public can come up and give comments, and I've seen items that have actually made it all the way through planning like this, all the way through the water board meeting, and they got before the commissioners, and because there was such a public outcry that politically the commissioners thought, well, this is a hot potato and we just don't want to go along with it. And that happens too. There's politics that play into this, but from actually a neighborhood area or a town area or a county-wide area, every one of us citizens has an opportunity and a right to go down and say our piece about how we want our area developed. Last night, I mean, there's a lot of these. There's not just one. There's this one. There's this one. All of these are in a packet. So when you come into the meeting and either sign into the meeting, sometimes they have sign-in sheets to use at the meeting, but there's going to be a packet there, and that's where I got this initially. You can see, this was a regular. It's even thicker than this. I've taken some other items out because there's some items that I'm going to continue to follow up with. I'm going to write about in my blog. It's called Tilting a Windmill on Facebook. Tilting a Windmill. And what tilting a windmill I do is I poke at these things. In fact, late last night I wrote up what I observed at this meeting and just some comments of what I thought. But that's why I've put it on this particular YouTube presentation, because I thought, this is an important thing. I wonder how many people actually know what the process is to for these developers to develop our areas. This is not unique to Nye County or Nevada either. This is the way it was in the Seattle area when I lived there. It was the way it was in Tucson, Arizona when I lived there. That they all have these type of boards, and the public is represented. And if you want to keep shenanigans from taking place and having your view ruined or your quiet and tranquility. Now, before I close this particular session out, I'm going to do another program too. actually a couple more on this particular project, because there's an RV park going on again. And I don't know if you've heard about this, folks, or in the outside areas, other states that happen to watch this program. In our area here, we have a severe water shortage. We get our water from the groundwater, and they're asking the community to conserve water. You've probably maybe having this going on in your area too. But they're coming to me, a resident, and saying, "Hey, Dwight, I want you and your wife to cut back on water. You know, do a little conserving. You know, watch what your water. Watch when you're washing your cars and that, because we have a water situation that's pretty critical right now." And then right out of the bat, this guy down here is wanting to build a huge RV park. RV park with lakes in it, lakes of water, fresh water coming out of the ground. So I'm objecting about that. But at that meeting last night, now that particular item was put on hold. They asked for a continuation of it, but there were people in the public there, so people that were older than I am. I'm not young guy by any means, but there's elderly people that are at these meetings because why? Because they worked their whole life. They took their savings, they sold their homes, in California or Montana or whatever, and this is where they were going to, live out their days in peace and tranquility here in rural Nye County in the town of Pahrump. And bang, there's going to be, this big proposal to put this huge RV park right across from these people's homes, and you can imagine what that is. You got traffic, you got people storing stuff, and one guy said, if that thing goes in, right where we've been able to see the mountains off the distance, we're not going to see them anymore because there's going to be these buildings and this fence and everything. And I said, well, this is the place to be complaining about. This is right here, and let the commissioners know, let this planning board know that you're not a bit happy about what they're planning to do right here. And so that is going to be continued in. I think it's going to be January the 14th next month, but that'll be 2015, but don't quote me on that. Again, go on the Nye County website and find out. And that's it today, folks.